Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this live stream with my good friend Andy. Andy, how are you today, my friend?
Fantastic. Great to be here again, David. This is our second week in a row. We're making a
It
habit of this,
is. It
right?
is. Yeah, I'm so
Great to be
excited
back.
to. Great to be with you again. And one of the things I was thinking about today is we're talking about turning point again. I think that I'm so passionate about turning point because it's all about taking time out and taking time away from the noise and getting away from the noise. I think that too often times we just get caught up in the doing of things, and we don't really have any intentionality. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to open up Turning Point to my community and my clients, and really allow people to come away, get away from their normal life, and really be intentional. And I think that that's one of the things that is super important about Turning Point. I've been talking to a variety of different people over the past couple of weeks, and two in particular this week. One is going to be on my podcast. As a matter of fact, it's going to be a special episode coming up later this week. And what's interesting about this particular episode is that this individual came with me. He's a friend of mine, and you'll hear it if you go out to In the Growth Space podcast and look it up when it comes. His name is Greg Krim, and Greg shares his story of taking time away to really intentionally focus on his dream. What did he want for his life? He was at a pivotal time in his life. And I think that so oftentimes we have these pivotal times in our lives. I mean, some are forced on us, like, 2 years ago when everything shut down and we had to stop. And I think that was a point in time where people did stop, but I think they started doing other things that weren't really super productive, like watching Netflix on binge, binge mode. And this is really taking intentionality to a whole nother level. And I was sharing with you before we hit go today that, the Navy SEALs here in the United States, Special Forces, have this saying. And that saying is that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And really what that means is that we've got to be slow, to slow down and be intentional and practice things intentionally to be able to get good and to really get clarity on what our mission is. And Navy SEALs do this all the time. They slow down so that they can get smooth. And when they can get smooth at something, they can speed up, and then they can be very intentional and be very strategic. And I'm just kind of curious, Andy, how does that resonate with you? Just this whole topic of getting away.
Well, again, it's interesting because you and I talk about this a lot. We spend a lot of time together and a lot of time talking about this very subject. And if I was to think back about, if I was to think and reflect on the week that I've just had and the amount of coaching calls that I've had this week, and if there was a theme running through the majority of those coaching calls, there would have been, Andy, you need to help me with a problem. Andy, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Andy, I'm in this career and I'm not sure if it's the right career for me.
Right.
I've been doing this role now for quite a few years and I'm sure there's more out there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, I've got this dream, but I've just got no idea of where to begin.
Yeah.
And clearly, hopefully, those coaching calls that I've had this week have helped people step forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting for me how many times that, well, you and I are in the space of sales right now, and you and I are in the space of marketing because we want people to come to Turning Point. And in the main, what's the reason we want people to come to Turning Point is because we know through our experience and evaluated experience that having been to Turning Point and having experienced people in Turning Point, like your friend Greg, Turning Point's perfect for taking that time out, as you mentioned, and helping people with those challenges that I was helping people with on our coaching calls this week.
Right.
Yes, I can help people move forward in the space of an hour.
Yeah.
But imagine for a minute that if you're in that space of looking to be, do, and have more, or looking to move out of being stuck, looking
Yeah.
to think about where your career currently is and where it might be, looking
Mhm.
about where potentially your life is, and what else could you create?
Yeah.
Because we know in that's Maslow was right. You and
Yeah.
I know Maslow was right. We all have infinite potential, and
Yep.
the only thing that's probably stopping all of us manifesting that potential into our lives is not being intentional and not stopping
Mm.
and
Yeah.
not taking time out for our growth.
Right.
You and I again were regaling stories while we were off air, and they
Yeah.
probably want to stay off air for now. But if there
Yeah.
was a theme of some people that we've talked about this week, the amount of I've probably spoke to 7 or 8 people via email this week or via WhatsApp that said, yeah, I love the thought of turning point, and I really want to be there, but
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and I really want to be there, but I've got another conference. I really want to be there, but something else is more important. I really want to.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting for a minute that they weren't telling me the truth, because I'm sure they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what they were unintentionally telling me was that something else is more important. And
Yeah.
nothing else, I don't think, is more important in our lives than fulfilling and maximizing our potential in the
Mhm.
way that your growth space podcast audience is going to hear very soon from Greg,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
story that he's going to tell of where he was before he came to Turning Point, and where he was last year, and where he's going to be this year.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
so I just think my starting point for this conversation was that I'm going to say this a few times on this live, but you've got to get yourself into Turning Point.
Yeah.
It's a life changing experience, and we've seen from some of our friends this week on social media
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
coming back again, that have
Absolutely. Yeah.
spoken into the change that it's helped them have in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And that's,
I'll calm down.
no, 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 no. It's absolutely true. And you know what? When you were talking about the people that you were talking to this week and in your coaching conversations, and I hear this all the time in my coaching conversations as well, where someone says something and then uses the word "but," and really what that means is that they're fighting for their limitations, and they're fighting for and really giving weight to their limitations. And I guess what we're saying is that, look, you don't have to do that anymore.
No.
You don't have to stay in the status quo. And really, that's exactly
Mm.
why I created my podcast in the growth space, because it's in that space between where we've been and that comfort zone
Yeah.
that we've been in, the status quo. And once we get outside of that and into this territory where we've never been, where we have to be able to push through the terror barrier,
Yeah.
and getting through that terror barrier, it's hard and it's uncomfortable. And yet at the same time, once we get on the other side of that,
Yeah.
we look back and go, wow, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I do this sooner? And I think that you just fighting for, instead of fighting for your limiting, your limiting beliefs and your limitations, why not fight for clarity on your dream?
Yeah.
I've been talking to I've been talking to people in my coaching practice. In one coaching conversation in particular, I was talking with an executive leader who is, hey, Jason, how are you? Yeah, absolutely. All greatness sits outside of that barrier. It's so true, Jason. And what's interesting, Jason, is that so oftentimes that the outside of that barrier is the freedom that we're all looking for, the clarity that we're looking for,
Mm.
and yet we don't push through it because we're too accustomed to be comfortable. We look at our circumstances and we stay in our current circumstances, as opposed to holding the image of what lies beyond that terror barrier. And I was talking with one of the executives that I coached this week, and oftentimes there's just this lack of clarity. And this particular individual had a real lack of clarity around what they wanted,
Yeah.
as they get into the next phase of their career or their life. And it's taking time away. It's taking time
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of the noise to be able to help us to gain that clarity and connect to the why. Connect to, why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I doing everything that I want to do? And I think that, over the last couple of years, we've been exposed to just the ability to get quiet or have things quieted on us.
Yeah.
But we really haven't had the process to really use that time wisely.
Sure.
And so what I'm suggesting is that turning point is that time that will help anyone who comes to the event to really get clear on what it is that they want, connect with their why, get clear on their purpose, and really be able to unlock the power of busting through that terror barrier and getting outside of their comfort zone, because we're going to show them some practical ways of doing that.
Yeah. Where else I think for the value that we're offering, can you take 3 days?
Yeah.
When do any of us find 3 days? It's difficult for most of us to try and find 3 hours because we're not intentional about it.
Yeah.
We're intentional about it. And you talked about some of the things that we'll share with people at the event.
Yeah.
As part of that event, again, if you don't know that, Paul Martinelli, your mentor and my mentor and our friend, going to help us take people through those exercises and through that process, and allow you to think into what it is that you want. And people are going to get the opportunity to learn from the very best. And we heard him speaking in a call this morning.
Right.
Him and his friend Christian Simpson, how they were mentored and coached by one of the legends that sadly just passed away a few weeks ago, Bob Proctor.
Right.
And Paul was telling a story earlier, wasn't he, about when he signed up to go and work with Bob, and they were doing their first event in London. And Paul talked the story about how he booked coach to do 9 or 10 hour flight to London.
Right.
And when he gets to London, he walks into the arrivals lounge, and Bob's there ready to meet him because Bob's landed a couple of hours early, in tie and suit and immaculate.
Yeah.
But Paul said, I looked as if I'd been, on a 9 hour flight in coach, because he was, in 83K between, two relatively big guys.
Right.
And Bob, challenged him to say, are you, why didn't you fly first class? Why didn't you fly business class?
Yeah.
And Paul, at that time, in his awareness, went into what we're just talking about, which is people put the reasons in place in front of their dream, their desire, their why, their purpose.
Yeah.
And Paul was saying, like a lot of us would, and I've been there in terms of,
sure,
I paid $800. Why would I pay $9,000 to and what a great question from Bob.
Yeah.
Are you not worth it?
Right.
Is your dream not worth it?
Yeah.
Are you not worthy of that investment? And you and I are not talking about $9,000 here. We're talking about a weekend of a lot less than that. And right now we've got a special offer that still goes on to the 28th of February. But that's what we want to do. Is we talk a lot that you and I are so passionate about fighting for other people's dreams.
Yes, absolutely.
And that sometimes when you're trying to encourage people to invest in themselves and give themselves the joy and the opportunity of focusing on them for a weekend, sometimes feels like we're sometimes fighting a little bit harder than perhaps they are.
Right.
But that's only because we've been there, right? We've been there where we didn't think we were worthy.
Yeah, and we've been there, and also, something that Paul said this morning as we were listening to he and Christian Simpson talk. One of the things he said that Bob said to him is that, look, I can see things that are right in front of you that you don't even have any idea are there. And I think that so often when we have someone who is outside of us, let's face it. Look, you see things that I don't see, and you've helped me to see things that I don't see. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this turning point, and because I had this blip, this vision of me and Paul
Yeah.
bringing this to, my community and the people who I care about. And I too see that in other people. I see their greatness. I see
Yeah.
their potential. And I just want to invite them, invite them to believe in themselves and borrow our belief until they can believe in themselves. And, one thing that you said, I'll just share it here too, is that we do have an early bird pricing special on right now that I just want to share, because the pricing is never going to be better. As a matter of fact, I know that when I went to Turning Point, I paid a heck of a lot more than this
Yeah.
to get there. And so the early bird pricing is in effect until the 28th of February. So March 1st at midnight at 12:01 on Eastern time zone, that price changes and it goes up by, I think, $125 or something like that.
Yeah.
But not only that, Paul has committed to doing a bonus teaching in March 16th.
Right.
So the evening of March 16th, he's going to do a free teaching to the entire people, anybody who has signed up before March 1st. He's going to do a teaching and he's going to get you prepared, and he's going to really challenge you to be thinking into what you want from the event. And I know that the people who come to that teaching are going to get way beyond what they pay for even the entire weekend. So I wanted to make sure that I shared what that special is. And I put in the comments, the link, the Turning Point link, to find out more information. As a matter of fact, there is a video on the page, right at the top of the page, from Paul himself. And he talks about how important it is to get away. And then there's another video with he and I together where we filmed and recorded just a conversation that we had. You were there watching as we recorded. Yeah. And so I just want to encourage people to go out to the website. It's davidmcglennon.com/turning point. It's scrolling across the bottom. It's also in the comments below. Go out and check it out. And believe me, I guarantee you, when you bet on yourself for this particular retreat, I guarantee you, you're gonna be glad you did. You are going to be absolutely glad you did. And to your point, talking with Greg this past week, I'm just reminded again how impactful it is. I can't wait for people to hear his story, because he has an amazing story. I mean, he was in the ministry. He was a pastor, and he basically changed his vocation. And he had been in for 30 years, but he had felt like a calling. And I'm not going to take his story.
No, right.
But it's an amazing story. Yeah. And so I want to encourage people to listen. So go out and subscribe to In the Growth Space podcast. Matter of fact, I'll put that in the comments below.
David, what can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
We were talking offline about we know we've got a number of people signed up for Turning Point right now, which is fantastic.
We do.
There's a few people that we know really well that are coming back again.
Yeah.
Some of those have talked in social media this week about the impact that it's had. Jenna Amato is one of them that springs to mind.
Yeah.
Laurel Johnson was another one that springs to mind. Two really people that are close in our lives. In your opinion, what's the reason that someone went? The last time Turning Point was an event and you were able to go, and we haven't been able to go for I think at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, right.
Because Paul potentially retired the piece of work. Right. It's only been your inspiration and your idea that I think's influenced Paul to bring this body of work back, because he'd have in effect retired it. Yeah. But what's your view about why someone would come back again? Why would they come back a second or a third time in some cases?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You would think you go through it and you kind of learn everything.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is, and this is something that I've learned in my journey as well, is that we all come and get to different levels and new levels of awareness. And when we get to that new level of awareness, in order to get to the next level of awareness and that next level in our journey, we need to get re-energized. And so when we come back, we're at a new place. So
Right.
where we were when we first came to the retreat, for example, myself, I came in 2016. I'm at a totally different place
Yeah.
where I am now today.
Right.
Totally different place. And because of that, I'll be impacted differently. Even though I'll be co-facilitating and helping, I'll be at a different place.
Yeah.
And so that's why when people come back, I know our friend, Kimberly Hambrick, she's coming back as well,
Right.
as well as Jenna Armato.
Yeah.
She's coming back again because they're all at different places,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
want to keep growing, and they want to keep getting to the next best version of themselves. And in order to do that, they need to be around people in a protected, safe environment where they're getting away from the noise of their lives, and they're really getting focused. They're getting focused on themselves. They're getting focused on their dreams, and they're getting focused on what that calling is, what their purpose for life. And when they do that, they can then be unleashed to the world and really get to the next best version of themselves. So to answer your question, that's
Yeah.
why. I mean, we are at different
Yeah.
parts of our life, and we're at a different level of awareness now.
Even though some of those people have had huge success as a
Oh
result of
yeah.
coming last time around, so
Yeah.
it's they've had huge success, but it's how do they go again? Is that really what you're saying?
Yes,
Right.
exactly, exactly. Paul has a teaching on in Think and Grow Rich, and he uses this metaphor of departure points and
Oh yeah.
arrival points. And I think it's true in all of our lives. We think of where we are. Where I was back last summer
Yeah.
is a different place than I am right now, because I reached out to Paul. I reached out to you first and asked, am I crazy? And you, of course, said, no, you're not crazy. And so then I reached out to Paul, and I shared with him what came into my awareness. And in doing that, he said yes. And by doing that, that got me to another arrival point.
Yeah. Right.
But I didn't stay there. I
No.
said
Right.
yes again, and I had to, and that new arrival point then becomes my departure point. And
Right.
so life is a journey of these
Mm.
arrival points and departure points. And so as we continue to grow and expand, and Paul talks about this all the time, that really as human beings, as spiritual beings, we seek fuller expression and
Yeah.
fuller expansion. And so to that extent, we want to be everything that God created us to be. And
Mm.
and when we do that, then we can allow that divine nature flow through us and allow God to really tap into the potential that we have within ourselves. So I think that that's the key to coming back again. So if you're watching this and you say, "Oh, I've been to Turning Point. I've been there." You're at a different place, my
Yeah.
friend. You're at a different place, and so I want to encourage you
And
to check out coming again.
you've reached this new arrival point, and then you think actually there's danger in thinking, oh, I've made it, I'm successful,
Yeah,
I'm living out my dream. Because
right.
again, from one of Paul's teachings and the law that we know quite well in terms of, that's the law of vibration, right? Because actually, if you think you've made it, if you think you've arrived,
Yeah,
and you do nothing else to kick on, right, the
yeah,
law of vibration is in play. We're always vibrating, so there's no such thing as inertia. You can't
right.
stand still. So if you're not looking to make that next departure point, by
Yes.
definition, you're starting to go backwards and retract, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not growing, you're dying. And
Right.
that's the thing. I never want to go backwards. I want to
No.
keep pushing forward, and what's interesting to me is, and I don't know that I've ever really shared this, too much publicly, but one of my great mentors was my grandfather. And here's a man who, in the last season of his life, and keep in mind, I think he was like 92 when he passed from this life to the next. And even at that point, he was doing things that in his younger years, he had no clue he
Right.
would ever be doing. I mean, here's a man who came through an era, a season of horse and buggies. I mean, transportation was, he owned a grocery store and a bakery store. I
Right.
have a check upstairs in my room, my bedroom, from the McGlennon Grocery and Bakery. And what's interesting is that when he first had that, I mean, he was delivering milk in like horse and buggy kind
Yeah.
of things,
Right.
it was,
Yeah.
and yet at the end of his life, he was on the internet. He was selling his stringed instruments. He was a huge violin collector,
Right.
and he was selling his violins to people in Belgium and Germany. And I mean, here he is on the internet selling things, globally,
Mm.
which to me blows my mind to understand where he was
Right.
at that point. And just as I think about his life, his departure points and his arrival points, and I guess all that to be said, that he was an example for me.
Right.
He was a mentor for me. He was an example of always growing, always pushing forward, always, being able to see what's next.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for that. I
Yeah.
really am.
Right.
And that's why I think that turning point means so much to me, is because as I went through it originally, I learned so much,
Yeah.
I grew so much, and it propelled me to where I am today. And I know that it's going to even take me farther as I, go through it again and get exposed to it again.
Yeah, and to be factual around that as well, or actually to be truthful, that's the right words, in terms of you've just come out of, your most successful entrepreneurial year ever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, last year was our best year. We grew our team. We're growing our team again this year. We have some big plans
Yeah.
for later this year,
Yeah.
and we're really really excited about the impact that we're going to make on people's lives, because there's a real shift that's taking place, and I think the shift is that people are moving away from this thought process and this idea of let's just work and work and work and then we're going to retire.
Yeah.
I think that has just that's an old era,
Yeah.
industrial era thinking process.
Yes.
And I think that what we're looking at now and what we're seeing is this new thought process of why not expand and help and impact people
Yeah.
where we're at, and continue this process
Yeah.
all of our life, and
Yeah.
then be able to transition into the next
Yeah.
at some point down the road. And
Yeah.
so I just think we're in this new space where we're not all about just accumulating things, but helping people. And
Yeah.
that's the exciting thing, I think, of where we're at right now.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Really exciting. Really,
Yeah,
really
yeah, it sure
exciting.
is.
And it gets closer and closer, doesn't it? I mean, I know that's a daft thing to say, but we can't be
Yeah,
more than about 8 weeks out now. I wouldn't have thought 8 or 9 weeks out
we are. Yeah, actually,
from seeing springtime in Atlanta.
yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so I just want to encourage people who are watching, and we'll kind of wrap it up here. But I just want to encourage people, check out Turning Point. I know that this event, this retreat, is something that absolutely will change your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. And so I just want to encourage you, check it out. Bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Bet on yourself. Do something that will get you away from all of the things that distract you and focus on you, because when you do that, amazing things that you may not even see now are possible for you. Andy, any other closing thoughts just to kind of wrap up our session together?
How passionate I am about this event. I think I've said when we've gone live before, I'm a slow learner. This will be my 4th time back at
Yes.
although I'm sure I'll be playing a slightly different role supporting you. But if I wasn't supporting you in helping prepare the event and facilitating it, you know me well enough. Despite the fact that I'm 4,500 miles away right now, I would be there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be using the reason or the excuse that there's a big ocean in the way.
Right.
I would be getting on a plane, and I would be investing in myself and investing in my friends and my partnerships and my relationships, and continuing to live into my potential. I would be there. So I just encourage each and every one of you, go to David's website, listen to Paul if you haven't listened to his recording. If you're not convinced by David and I talking to you on this live or watching the recording, go and listen to Paul. And if you don't know Paul,
absolutely.
he lives in the pretty much the wealthiest zip code in the United States, down in Jupiter in Florida.
Yeah.
You know, he's been a highly successful business person. He's made, you know, created 6 or 7 multi-million-dollar businesses. And David has influenced him to bring Turning Point out of some form of retirement, to come and bring it to you. You're going to learn from the very best. And if I and a few others can travel 4,500 miles or a couple of thousand miles to be there, if you're listening to this in the United States, on the continental US, you've really got no excuse.
It's an easy
not to be there. It's a hop, skip, and a jump, as you guys say.
That's right.
And David said earlier as well, it's not the level of investment that it was when David and I have been previously.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna love it, and you're gonna have some fun. But most importantly, David said, I guarantee you, it will change your life, and it will change your life for the better and the positive. You will not be the same person afterwards.
No doubt about it. You just said something here too that, hey, Regina, it really literally is a hop, skip, and a jump for you. Yeah,
that's a
exactly.
Walk.
And I know that you're going to be there. So, and I know that it's going to be your return. You're one of those people that's a return trip for. So I love that, Regina. Thank you so much for investing in yourself, because I know that you're at a different place now than you were before well.
Oh my gosh, if there's ever a role model.
Exactly. Well, and that was the other thing that I was going to say too, is that one of the cool things is that not only is it fun and it's time away, but you're in a room with other people who are like-minded, who are seeking the same things. And you know what? When you're in a room like that, there is nothing better than that energy. I mean, that energy will propel you and will help you. And you know, one of the things that is often difficult in going to a retreat like this or going to an event like this is that, you know, you get all charged up, and then afterwards there's, you know, it's kind of like this, you know, you're off a cliff, and then, oh, now what? Well, let me tell you that there's going to be an opportunity for you to not let that happen. We're not going to let that happen to you.
No.
We know that that is sometimes the case. And so we're bringing a solution to be able to help carry that energy forward so that you can finish creating the dreams that come out of you during the exercises at Turning Point. So really, really excited to be there with you, my friend, and looking forward to, and actually we're going to go down to see the venue and kind of do some final planning in just a few weeks. So super excited about that as well. So for those of you who are watching, thank you for watching live. Thanks for engaging. If you're watching the replay, just hit #replay. If you have questions, throw them in the comments, tag one of us. And I can't wait to see you as well, Regina, and looking forward to that as well. So, all right, my friend. Well, thank you. And we will see you all again soon.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye for now.